I am Professor G. That's right. Schooling folks each and every evening. Thanks for hanging out with us. OG Sports Talk here on Sports Fact Radio. Thank you for letting me be a part of what you are doing at this time. As always, we can, hang out, chew the fat, kick it like it's real good. And we got to talk a little bit more because we're in the crunch time. It's certainly the time of the year where you start looking for teams to strap up and step up, and or other teams to just cash out. And it looks like the New York Giants once again have cashed out. Now, I understand why. They fired Brian Daboll, the head coach. Now, look, it has been a tough season. Man, it's just been a tough tenure for Daboll. I mean, he was a great offensive coordinator in Buffalo, but it's just not working out in New York. And again, you have to ask yourself why, especially this year. Now, first off, the injury to Cam Scatterboo was crushing. And again, my beautiful bride is a Giants apologist. And I told her on draft night that there were 3 players. I thought the Giants had a great draft. I mean, you think about it. They got Jackson Dart, who's a starter, who is built for New York. I mean, hey, look, if you can play in Oxford, Mississippi, and you're the most famous person in the state as a quarterback, there's not that much different type of pressure than when you go to the Big Apple, right? And we saw how it worked out for Eli. Now, I'm not saying that Jackson Dart is Eli Manning, because Eli was clutch. And you want to know how clutch Eli was? As much as people talk about Eli, which I don't get, he beat Tom Brady twice. Tom Brady has 9 Super Bowls to his credit, were it not for your boy, Eli Manning. Let's be clear about that. But with the Giants is a simple one. Joe Shane don't know what the hell he doing. People often look at teams that win championships, but make no mistake about it. A championship is won by an organization. The on-field product is the last part of said organization. You got to have front office executives who can identify talent. You got to have front office executives who know when to purge old talent to get either draft picks or better players. Joe Shane does none of that. And the black eye on his career is and will forever be the Hard Knocks thing, where he just let Saquon Barkley run, and all Saquon Barkley did was run the Eagles to a damn Super Bowl where they kicked the Chiefs' ass. So that's the problem with the Giants. They in the Big Apple, and they're a Big Apple mess. Okay? Let's just be clear. Just because you're a white guy who's privileged and comes from a lot of money does not mean you know how to run a pro franchise. That's just how it is. I couldn't make it up if I tried. And the Mara family, Wellington Mara, they tell me was a great and benevolent fellow. John Mara took it over from here, and it's like, we can win, but we want to make profits too, right? And now look, back to the drawing board again for a coach. And for real, you have to ask yourself this question. Is coaching in New York all of that these days? I'm serious, man. I don't care. Well, they share the same stadium, which to me never works. I'm sorry. That's like I'll tell you this because I was on the property for a pre-fight event. Evander Holyfield, right? Evander Holyfield has this mansion, long acre estate off of Old National Highway. And so he's fighting, I forgot who he was in the 90s. So he invites the media to his house for this event. Great food, fun time. And there's just like pool house in the middle of like this long yard area. Wow. And so I asked people, and naive, hadn't been around too much, wow, he's got another house on the property. And they go, oh, you didn't know? His ex-wife lives there. I'm like, what? His ex-wife lived on the property, and so did his new wife. So he just wanted to have easy access to his kids. I use that as an analogy because that's what's going on with the Meadowlands. All right? One of them teams need to get him out of there so the other team can win. And this oil and water mix of Jets and Giants sharing the same building, it's just not good for any of them. Okay? You got to separate yourself. And isn't it ironic, all right, for the most part, that since the Jets moved into the Meadowlands, they've been less than sorry. They've been extra sorry. And conversely, the Giants, since Tom Coughlin, have just, I mean, let's be real for a second, man. You say what you want about Coughlin, but they played with discipline and they played tough. Now, they had a different set of characters too. But how is it that people would routinely kill Tom Coughlin for being this drill sergeant dictator who was too hard on his players? If you ask Michael Strahan, would he strap up for Tom Coughlin again? He would. You know, anybody that played for him. Eli, ride or die. So you bring in the arrogance of a dude named Dayball, and he can't fix the running game. His passing game with a superstar quarterback is inconsistent at best. They lost Malik Neighbors, so you put everything into the mix. In firing Brian Daboll, nothing more than trying to put a Band-Aid on a severed finger. Really, the problems with the Giants and the Jets are bigger than the on-field product. They go to the front office. And again, what happens is you get this nepotism in the front office. You get all these people who are so busy playing racquetball or squash with higher-ups, building coalitions, and not getting the job done. And I've never been inside the Giants facility, but I've seen dysfunctional front offices. Hell, I covered the Atlanta Falcons in the 90s when primetime got there, when the front office was known as the Clampets. Right. And for those of y'all who don't know about the Clampets, that's the Beverly Hillbillies family. And the word around the street, this was before Arthur Blank bought the team from the Smiths family, and all of my colleagues in Atlanta. And if you listen to the Two Live Stews in the morning, they'll back me up on that. All right? Because me and Doug and Ryan all worked at 790 The Zone at some point. We all had to deal with the futility of the Falcons in the early 90s. You know, that Chris Miller, even when they had Andre Rison and Jamie Dukes and the boys, they couldn't win because Jerry Glanville was an idiot. And in many respects, without the big belt buckle and the high top hat, you know, the cowboy hat, that's Brian Daboll. I mean, he didn't have Jerry Jeff Walker and, you know, a redneck orchestra in the locker room so that we couldn't talk to the players. But when you just start looking at doubling down on the arrogance or the ignorance of stuff that didn't work, that's Brian Daboll. Hey, dude, it's all right. Look, when you're a coordinator, you're designing plays, I should say, for one side of the team. All right. That's your whole single solitary focus. You don't have to worry about special teams. You don't have to worry about defense. You got to worry about the offense. Brian Daboll is very good at worrying about the offense. When it comes to managing a team, particularly on game day, he stinks. All right. And it's good. Hey, some guys aren't game managers. They're good at prepping you for the game. Some guys don't know when to take timeouts. When do you go for a field goal? When do you go for a 2-point conversion? That's Brian Daboll, okay? He's like the dumb blonde of play callers. I said it. And so, give me New York. I don't know what you've been watching for the last 4 years. The dude can't win. And you can't keep recycling these dudes when there are other guys out there who going to win. And you know what they're saying in New York? They're saying that they might get a college coach. Really? Do you want to? Hey, look, if you got a Power 5 college job or you got a job in the SEC or the Big 10 plus 8, no. Ain't no way in the hell. I stay my ass in Madison, Wisconsin before I go to New York and be up under that madness, because then you got all the stupidity of the knuckleheads and too many media outlets. Just, you know, it's pounds of flesh. Now, this is why the hire is so important for the Giants, and I think it's really interesting. You get a quarterback with the talent of Jackson Dart in the city. Dude, that's great for the league. Jackson Dart could be next year's version or the year after version of Jaden Daniels. But the Giants don't give him enough parts. I'm shocked Eli Manning is still alive after the brutality that he had to go up against for years without an offensive line in front of him. Then he had to play with punks like Tiki Barber. There's always some drama around the Giants. Just win, baby. Just win. And it seems like when that era that was defined by the greatness of Michael Strahan and Eli Manning once they left. And it's a damn shame when you look at one of the storied franchises in the league that's going to hell in a handbasket. And for the record, as much as everybody likes to talk about the lovable losers that the Jets are, when the Giants are good, the NFL is better. Hey, if y'all were around in the 90s and remember those great matchups when Joe Gibbs was in Washington and Bill Parcells was in New York. Epic games. Epic games. I hated being on the end of losing a lot of them, but that is the tradition of excellence that we were defined by after the Parcells era. They screwed up on giving the job to Belichick, so he went to New England and became a cheating legend, and then he goes to Carolina, and well, never mind. Still, the moral to the story is the Giants front office has to get out of the way of the Giants team. They are the ones that are failing their fan base. They're the ones that are failing the city. And in so doing, they're failing the league. And they need to be called out for it. You know, owners get all these stadiums, they get these tax breaks and all these municipalities, and all fans want you to do is win. And look at what is happening in New York. You put all that money into a stadium, and and then the Jets probably would have been better off had they taken a stadium on the west side of the city that was going to be financed by Woody Johnson. They decided to collaborate, and it ain't working for the Giants or the Jets. It's just not. Now, New York can't afford a new stadium, but them two teams don't need to be playing each other. And it is in the best interest of the league for the damn Giants family to get a freaking coach in there that makes them relevant. Let's be real. The Big Apple without a big team in football makes the league worse. People going to watch the game. People still going to love the game. But the games are healthier when you got consistent, contending, championship caliber teams in the major market. And I guarantee you, your boy Roger Goodell would love to see New York back again. It's your boy Professor G. Mark Gray. It is OG Sports Radio on Sports Rap.
I'm Doug.
What up, though? I'm Ryan.
And the Two Live Stews are back.
Same dogs, same shenanigans, no tongue biting or clinches.
Right. Just sports talk with a side of culture and a pinch of we shouldn't be saying.
Come on, man. Check us out on sportsrapnetwork.com and in the mornings on 107.5 HD2 Detroit.
We all we got. OG Sports Radio moving. It is your boy, Professor G. Thanks for hanging out with me. Appreciate you for coming along for the ride. As always, find me all over the place in cyberspace at The Sports Groove, 24/7, 365 on a computer, smartphone, tablet, however you get your social media groove on. Find me, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Join the HBCU Sports Nation page. We got big plans coming up for Thanksgiving weekend right here on the network. I'm going to New Orleans to cover the Bayou Classic and more. So follow me on the HBCU Sports Nation. Keep it locked right here on weeknights and stay up with your folk. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I did want to talk about somebody that's very, very intriguing around the country as far as basketball is concerned, but is about ready to assume native son status in Detroit. Cade Cunningham is straight ball. I mean, and it's one thing to be a scorer who's efficient and leads the team, but I mean, this guy is kind of ridiculous. Now, you don't want to really judge what you saw when you see a guy go off against the Wizards, who are the jump off of the NBA, quite frankly. You pass through, you get some, you go, right? Anyway, but dude was, I mean, it's crazy because he put the ball up 45 times from the field, okay? He only made 14 shots, right? But he scored 46 points. It had to be the most inefficient 40-point performance since the NBA merger. Let me just be clear about that. But quite frankly, as inefficient as he was to score 40 points, which is crazy to me. Now, again, he puts up a lot of three balls. I mean, think about it. If you make 8 or 9 three balls, that's 24 points. You can get up to 40 with several garbage points. But I got to be honest with you. When you look at Cade Cunningham's productivity and you compare him with like the elite players in the game, certainly the most efficient guys, he don't have to take a back seat to anybody. He's giving you 27.5 points per game. All right? That's only like second in the league to the reigning MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Let's be clear about that. I'm a Knicks fan. Jalen Brunson is my guy. Jalen Brunson, as great a field general, floor leader that he is, he ain't no K.E. Cunningham. He ain't no SGA. I mean, think about it. Cunningham's now actually scoring Victor Wembanyama, although Wemby has come back to the pack. I like the fact, and Wemby is a bigger player too, so he's going to be more efficient in terms of getting to the hoop. But you're talking about, and I think really when you get right down to it, that's probably where Cunningham has to make his biggest leap, getting to the hoop. I think he's falling in love with the three-pointer sometimes, but he's so efficient. How do you hate on that? Now, again, high-volume scorer, but he's got to get a little bit more consistent, if you ask me. But I love his game. And see, you can look at all the factors, but the bottom line is he's going to have to put up more shots because there's not a whole lot around him still. They're moving in that direction. Don't get it twisted. But as of right now, to whom much is given, much is required. But I will tell you this, I expect the efficiency to grow, right? I think he's going to, if he stays healthy for a full season and body doesn't break down from carrying the Pistons on his back, okay? And I think that's, because let's be clear about something. The NBA is officially now a marathon. It is not a sprint. And even the young players, and again, Cunningham in the second year, they wear down. I mean, you put that first 82-game grind on your body, you get a chance to relax. Now you come back, you think you're ready for the grind, but you will hit a wall. And we know they're playing games right now, but we know the season doesn't really start until Christmas. But I like Cade Cunningham a lot. And the fact that you can be inefficient and still get 40 points is crazy to me. And I don't think he's ball hogging. I know a lot of people want to complain that too many shots. But you know something? Somebody got to be the alpha dog if the Pistons are going to come back. And see, again, sorry, young G's, I remember hating the Pistons. Let's be clear about that. I didn't like the way Chuck Daly played, but they won. And quite frankly, they had a very efficient backcourt. But the athletes the Pistons have make them an intriguing watch for me this season in the East. Now, I'm not going to put any burden or any expectation on them other than the fact I think that you could make a compelling argument that by the end of the season, Cade Cunningham could be the most improved player in the league if his efficiency numbers get better. But, I mean, look, when you got to beat a dude, sometimes you got to, go rogue. I mean, it happens like that. Sometimes leaders got to step out and do their thing. Get up more shots, make more shots, okay? Who else do you want in Detroit to get up more shots than Cade Cunningham right now? But you have now again, that's to win games. When you start thinking about winning championships, you're looking for other parts. They are a work in progress. But I tell you what, Bernie Bickerstaff's kid knows what he's doing. He's smart. Every once in a while in the intensity of the moment, I think he can lose his composure. But doesn't everybody every once in a while? I like what they're building in Detroit, from front office to sideline. And you got your superstar there. Look, objectively speaking, as one who's seen bad basketball for damn near 50 years through different ownership groups, the Pistons are knocking on the door. So, hey, look, there are going to be potholes. Remember potholes in my lawn? Those are y'all OGs. They're going to be, there are potholes along the way to greatness. Okay? And you should remember that if you remember how tough it was initially for Detroit to crack the Boston Celtics code during the 80s and 90s. Took a minute. Now, I don't see Rick Mahorn walking through that door. There's no Dennis Rodman on that roster. Hell, there ain't even Ben Wallace yet. Think about that. You plug players of that era in a team like this, and all of a sudden, you got a playoff run. Again, so I know a lot of people are frustrated. And see, this is what old school has to do, all right? You can't compare the new Gs to the OGs because the new Gs do it a different way, okay? And sometimes when you have to carry the team, you have to be a hawk, okay? And I have no problems with guys doing that. until the team around them is better. So we'll see as the season evolves, but keep your eye on the Pistons. You know, nobody's talking about them, and I don't know if they can win the East, but if you look at their rankings and how they've progressed from last year, I mean, let's be real for a second. They were giving up 113 points. Their defensive rating was 113.1. Offense was 115. Okay, or that's where it is right now. So they're in the NBA in defense. They're 16th in the NBA in offense. Tells me that they got to find other players around Cunningham to step their offensive game up. Now, they are playing defense. Let's be clear for a second. You know, last year they were number 11 in defensive rating. You know, so all of this points me in the direction of thinking, and maybe I'm not seeing them enough. I'm not going to say that I watch the Pistons every night, but they playing defense again. And when you start talking about a team that's ranking third in forced turnovers and steals, you know, Asar Thompson teaming with Cunningham, that, you know, they create transition opportunities. And as their half-court offensive execution gets better, man, look, I'm just saying, you know, you look at the way that they have a combination of forced turnovers. They do clean the glass, and they like to run. And that's the big thing that they can do. Now, when you're a fast break team, you can't fast break all season. But these are young kids with young legs. And this is the game that they grew up playing through all the AAU stuff and things like that. I really like the way the team is being constructed. I mean, when you got Asar Thompson, you got Cade Cunningham, you got pieces to build around. Now, I will say this, and I do like the addition of Jalen Duren. He makes him a much better defensive player. Much. So what I'm looking for right now is the vet. Is there a veteran out there that could fit in there? And it doesn't necessarily need to be like a superstar vet. The Jimmy Butler type. What this team needs, in my opinion, right now is a shot of maturity. Somebody who can come in and just kind of, you know, settle the locker room, be able to make a big bucket, get a big basket. You know you can count on him, which is what Cade Cunningham does. But who's the mentor? And I think that's what you got. There's no guy like Joe Dumars around anymore. And let's be clear about that. Say what you want about the Pistons and the Bad Boys and all that. Daly was a hell of a coach. He understood leadership, and the discipline of those championship runs was on that bench. And to me, if J.B. Bickerstaff can find that on his bench, I got to believe that the sky's the limit for the Pistons. I'm not trying to capitulate it to, you know, the home folks, because if they stank, you know, if they smell like Lindbergh cheese, I would be right there. You know, if they were playing like smelly sweat socks, I'd go there. But they're not. And temper your frustration with an outlook that's no longer bleak. I know, it's tough. It's tough. Coming out of baseball season, tough. We got the Lions, I mean, I see Philly and Detroit meeting in the NFC Championship game. There, I said it. It's out there on the record on blast. So if I go ahead and, you know, find one of those betting parlors, I'd make sure I stayed away from Chauncey Billups. Can't be going down that road anymore. You might end up with some significant other kind of action. But I digress. Anyway, I can't wait to see. Well, I missed the Pistons when they were here, so I guess I'm going to have to travel up the road to Philly to see them sometime this season. But keep your chin up, Detroit. These are good times. And you watch this team explode in a good way. If they stay healthy, second half of the season, I don't think too many teams are going to want to see them on any given night. It is Professor G. Mark Gray. It's OG Sports Radio on Sports Rap Network.
Hey, what up, though? It's your boy, Young JOC. That's right, Young Jock, man. Taking over the mornings with Shawty and Miss Shanika on sportsrapnetwork.com. 107.5 WGPR HD2. We all we got, baby.
One of America's great Hall of Fame writers joins us right now. He is Bill Rhoden from Anscape, one of those great products on the ESPN platform. And most of all, he's the dean, the curator of the Rhoden Fellows, which are bringing new brothers and sisters into the industry. So, Bill, Thanks a lot for spending time with me. How are you?
I'm good. So you got to tell your listeners, like, you forgot to. We had this great conversation. You forgot to hit record.
See, there you go. You just had to out me. All right.
You're a pro. You're a pro. So we'll
You get what you pay for behind the scenes.
we'll recreate your magic. But yeah, no, it's all good, man. Great being on a sports rap with you.
Well, we have some fun, but I'm dedicating this week to Lenny Wilkens, the former coach of the Seattle Supersonics, Cleveland Cavaliers, and Atlanta Hawks. He's a dream team coach that won a gold medal, and really one of the guys that I truly enjoyed covering in my early days as a writer. So, big picture, what was Lenny Wilkens' impact on the game?
Well, personally, man, I mean, Lenny Wilkens was always a gentleman of the game. As a young reporter, man, I remember talking to him, and he was just very gracious, willing to share. I'm into the history, really shared history. And he was part of that second wave of African-American professional athletes going into the NBA, the NFL, baseball, and when the game was when there's still quotas, when the game was still just becoming desegregated, and it comes as a surprise to a lot of young guys. A lot of people thought that the NBA was always 80% black. When Wilkins came along, I think he began his career in St. Louis, and the NBA was segregated. They had quotas, only X number of players per team. But that was just such a great era with Lenny Wilkens and Bill Russell, a young Oscar Robertson. So he was a pioneer, man. He was a quiet pioneer. He, as a head coach, he led Seattle to an NBA championship. Was a great head coach and was also a great player. So, and like I said, he was just a gentleman, very accommodating, understood the history, and was from Bed-Stuy, New York. So, yeah, no, he will definitely be missed, but he made his impact, and he lived a very long and rich life, and had a great career. And it was very significant. I'm glad he's memorialized in the Hall of Fame as a player and as a coach. I mean, he got his due.
I mean, real ambassador for the game too. I kind of thought, if you look back historically at what he did with the second iteration of the Dream Team, they played those Olympics in Atlanta. Had that been a banana peel and they slipped up, it would have been a big moment. But he went on and he led that team, and it couldn't have been as easy as it was, as they made it look, to follow the Dream Team that Chuck Daly had. What do you make of that historic moment in his career?
Well, yeah, no, yet another benchmark. Yet another benchmark. Very quiet, like you said. I mean, the headlines followed the first Dream Team, and he did what he was supposed to do. You're right. Had they lost, we'd have a different conversation. But Lenny was just a great, understated head coach, and he could take a lot of talent. And basically just steer it. Just steer. He knew how to drive the Ferrari, but he also, when he was with Seattle, he also knew how to drive the Volkswagen, I mean, he just knew how to get the most out of people without screaming and yelling and all that. I mean, his style was great. I just think the world of Lenny Wilkens.
Yeah, just a great man, and he certainly will be missed as we continue with Bill Rhoden from Anscape at ESPN, and we thank him for joining us right now. I want to shift gears and talk about some football right quick. Those New York football giants have made a move to fire Brian Daboll. Simply put, I think the front office has let him down, and he couldn't figure it out. What do you make of the Giants right now in New York and where they go from here?
Yeah, I mean, the Giants like the Knicks, man. Like they is constantly just chasing their tail, but making a lot of money, And I think with Daboll, kind of saw it coming, man. He lost his stuff, man, several on the sideline. It was just not a great visual. They like in the NFL, like kind of the stoic head coach, but Daboll clearly lost it a number of times. He was throwing his thing out, and then they found their quarterback in Jackson Dart, but I think that because he used Dart like a drowning man uses like a branch. And then I think he just ran him into the ground, man. This guy was in the concussion protocol like 4 times. And I'm sure the hires him, man, we can't have this guy killing our franchise. So I think there was that. And the front office isn't going to fire themselves. I mean, they're the ones who let Barkley leave. I mean, they should have been fired on the spot for that. But Dable will, he'll get another job, maybe not another head job, but they've got a good with Dart. I think they've got something going, but the boy just has to learn, man. He got to learn that this is not college,
Now,
or else he will not survive.
well, let me ask you this. Where would you fall on like Lane Kiffin? I heard a rumor thrown out that he might be a guy that may be interested in coaching his prize pupil in the city.
I want to see Brian Flores get a shot at being the head coach of the Giants. Remember, it was the Giants' bungling of his interview is what led for Brian to sue the NFL because they gave him a sham interview, and I think it was the coach who slipped up and let him know it was a sham interview. So I think that it would behoove the Giants. Number one, Flores, I think, is a hell of a coach. He's a great defensive coach. And I think that he is no nonsense guy. He would be a great hire. Now, Lane Kiffin, who knows, man? I mean, these college guys, I don't know the last college guy who's come in and done well, but I think Flores has been an NFL coach, head coach, did well, and he is a great, great NFL coach as a defensive coordinator. So I'm beating the drum. You gave me a great idea, man. I want to hurry up and get off the podcast so I can go ahead and write this. I think that the Giants need to hire Brian Flores. What kind of full circle moment would that be?
That would be, and I could say I had a small part in it.
Yeah,
might get a trip to the suite up there sometime. And end up eating a pizza like your boy did last year, DeVito. Let's talk about Pittsburgh for a second. I thought that the missing link was Aaron Rodgers. I figured short passes, good defense. They're gonna run the football. What's happening to Pittsburgh? I mean, has Mike Tomlin lost his touch?
Well, you're right, Mark, that he was a missing link, but it's an old link. It's an old rusted link, and I think, and that's Pittsburgh's problem in general. I saw the game Sunday when Khalil Mack hit him for safety, and Aaron just looked so slow, man. He's 41 years old, and I think suddenly it's descending on him. Like the body, it all happens at once. You're in this young man's game with these 25, 26, 27 super fast, super athletic defenders, and it's just caught up with him. And I'm pulling for Mike. But his team is getting old. The defense is not the Pittsburgh defense that you and I were familiar with. It's just old.
Still
right?
curtain there, that's for sure.
Yeah, the cotton curtain.
I mean, it's just it confounds me, and I guess I'm at that age. I sort of since Chuck Noll, and then there was that coward thing. Mike Tomlin is like the sun coming up in Pittsburgh to me. I can't imagine him being anywhere else. Do you think he's under any pressure there now?
Well, he's always under pressure, and I mean, he's always under pressure. If you hear people, I'm just pulling for him to continue his streak of not having a losing season, and it would be great to see him actually reach the playoffs and do well. And one last hurrah. I thought actually last year when he had Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, I thought even then, oh man, this is like the perfect formula. You got the old vet and the young vet, but that didn't work out. So yeah, I'm sure he's facing a lot of pressure, particularly because I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to end up winning the AFC North. Because
you on that, huh? Yeah, a lot of people seem to think that's coming.
Well, because it's so pitiful. It's not going to be Cincinnati. It's not going to be Cleveland, and it doesn't look like
two-horse race. Yeah, I get it.
And Baltimore clearly, with Lamar, a healthy Lamar, the team's getting healthy. They got it going on. I think that they're only building up steam.
So what's up with Philly? Can they go back to back? I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a more disrespected champion, especially 9 games into the season when they're 7-2.
My friend, and I have the utmost respect for Philly, particularly for Jalen Hurts. I really have a lot of respect for that brother. I think he's great, and he doesn't really care. He plays to win. If he needs to run, he runs. If he needs to pass, and he's just timely, man. He just does what it takes to win. Like somebody once told me,
win, baby. Remember that?
Just win, baby. He plays winning football when winning football needs to be played. And so I have the utmost respect for him. What I love to see is Baltimore and Philly in the Super Bowl. I think that would be the classic Super Bowl of all time, even better than when Hurts faced Mahomes. I think you have two real barbershop brothers in the Super Bowl. No disrespect. I mean, I think Mahomes is a very down brother, but I think that to have Mahomes and Lamar in the Super Bowl, brother, that we talk about something to be off
Man, that's
the
box
chart,
office.
off the chart, off the chart.
They'd
Let's
have
make
to
it
put both.
happen.
They'd have to put both those quarterbacks on the Madden game for the next season because it would be
Right.
like that. You know,
I think it'd be great. And playing in the only problem they're playing in
Northern California.
So
Not far from
hopefully,
Berkeley.
yeah. So hopefully it's not going to be. We're not going to get rain and all that stuff, because it is going to be February. So who knows?
Well, I'm going to let you go on this one since we talking Berkeley. The University of California produced Deshaun Jackson, great wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles in his day. He's now morphing himself into a pretty successful college football coach at Delaware State, having turned that program around in one season. So I'm here also covering University of Maryland. I've seen the success of a guy who caught lightning in a bottle at HBCU. If you're at the University of Maryland, would you extend at least an interview opportunity to Deshaun just to gauge where his head at, given that we've seen the success of some other people, such as Coach Prime in Colorado?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Mark, because I mean, Deshaun Jackson at Delaware State is one of the great stories of college football. Certainly the great story of HBCU football. As he's energized the NBAC, energized a program that's been down for a long time in Delaware State. I'm headed there over the weekend. I was in Philly to see them play Norfolk and Vic in an emotional game. Impressed by what he's done in his first year. To your point, I think that eventually, if he continues to be successful for the next 2-3 seasons, I think he's going to probably do what Deion did, which is leave the HBCU sphere and go to a larger program. But I think that we might be a couple seasons of consistent success away from that. I think programs want to see, okay, yeah, he's done it for 3 years. Okay, that works. So I think this is just the stage. I think this is just setting the stage. But I think it's a great Deshaun Jackson in Delaware State is a great story.
I think so too. And trust and believe, we're trying to get him on Sports Rap before you get to him this weekend for sure. That's Bill Rhoden, ladies and gentlemen. Hall of Fame sports writer, academic, philanthropist. Let's be real about that. When brothers are helping other brothers and sisters get education these days, it can't be underscored enough how important that is, man. You're doing the work of the Lord. I respect you for that. I want to be able to do that one day myself. So let's keep it going. Appreciate you, my brother.
Mark. Yeah, thank you, man. You've been doing it at a high level for a long time. So you've been doing the work too. So I really respect you and appreciate it.
Got to protect the future. Thank you, Bill. Always a pleasure, my friend. Bill Rhoden, ESPN's Anscape. We got more of what you came here for on the other side. It's Professor G. Mark Gray on Sports Rap Network.
All right. Okay, we got to.
Yep, I got you.
Okay. All right.
Take care, bro.
All right, man.
All right. Travel safe.
All right. You too.
Sports Shop Radio, for original insight, opinions, and expert analysis without exaggeration, hesitation, or hateration. Chop it up with Sports Talk OGs Errol Reese, K-Mac, and the lovely Pam Smith at 4 p.m. Eastern every weekday. And get your head together at the shop, the Sports Shop on Sports Rap Network.
We all we got. David Aldridge joins us right now from The Athletic, the one-time DA of the NBA. He's the DA of all sports these days, and he joins us right now to share some knowledge with us. As always, my friend, what is up?
Man, a whole lot. There's a whole lot going on. All good.
I really want to talk seriously because those of a certain age who watch or listen to this program don't remember you from your days on TNT and covering the NBA. I'm blessed to be able to cover Lenny Wilkens and get to know him when I was covering the Hawks. Mm-hmm. It hit me really harder than I thought it was going to be. But let's just talk about Lenny Wilkens. First off, the basketball player. I mean, I talked to Scoop Jackson. Scoop said he was the player that, when you look at the legacy of basketball in Seattle, it's Lenny Wilkens. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Sure. I mean, he's certainly in that group, of the best players who ever played for that franchise. Lenny there's very few people that are in the Hall of Fame as a player and as a coach, right? So, I mean, Lenny was a 9-time All-Star and, famously was, that part of that quote about, Lenny's going left, so just just make him go right, and then he go right and kill you anyway. So, like when he still got, and then he get to his left again. So, Lenny was incredibly crafty, New York point guard, smart, heady, just an outstanding player. But obviously, I was too young to watch him during his heyday as a player, but certainly got to know him as a coach in Atlanta and in Cleveland primarily. He was just brilliant in terms of he made the game simple. Like a lot of people want to complicate basketball, and he made it simple and coached it very effectively by keeping it simple. I think it just, the record speaks for itself. He was the all-time winningest coach in NBA history until a couple of years ago. Just constantly churned out, 45, 50 win seasons every year. And did win the chip in Seattle in '79. So, and just a good dude. I mean, Lenny was just always a guy you could talk to. He never was too big to talk to you or too busy. Would always talk to you and be very earnest and frank about his experiences.
We're all just with us from the Athletic as we talk a little and remember the greatness that was Lenny Wilkens. Basketball mind. When you start talking about the great basketball minds in the game, and say what you want, Lenny Wilkens was right up there to me with the guys like the Larry Browns. I mean, just great innovators of the game. And I think, you being a basketball expert, DA, do you see any of his thumbprint in terms of the way that we're playing the game right now?
Sure. I mean, the ball movement that those teams had, to me, is very much a precursor to the way the teams are playing today. You had Larry Nance and John Williams shooting jumpers regularly. Like that was not an unusual thing for those Cleveland teams to do. You had Mark Price splitting double teams, which is, something that a lot of teams do now. That's how they attack the double rather than trying to go around it. They go through it. All those things a lot of things that are in the game now are things that Lenny preached. But Lenny always preached that the ball has to move. It can't get stuck. And that's why those teams were so difficult to guard and why they were so successful, because anybody could shoot. Anybody could score in those offenses. And it didn't matter whether it was Doherty facing up and shooting the jumper, or them getting Mookie Blaylock downhill on a pick and roll. There's all kinds of different ways to skin a cat. And Lenny would take whatever talent, just like a Don Shula would take the talent he had and figure out the best way to win games with it. And so that's the mark to me of a great coach.
Funny that you mentioned that, because I think, and again, having covered the Hawks at that time, there was a massive fallout when Lenny traded Dominique Wilkins.
Yeah.
If there was one, and I don't want to use the term loosely like blemish, the Hawks were the number one. I think they had the number one record, certainly in the East, if not all the NBA at that time. And they traded him. I thought the Hawks, and this is a franchise I don't think's ever played in the NBA Finals, that might have been their run. If there was a stain on the record, would that be a stain?
I mean, yeah. I mean, his Cavs teams never beat the Bulls, right? Like that's the other one to me, is that those teams were certainly, I remember Magic calling them the Cavaliers the team of the 90s, because we all thought the Cavaliers were going to win a couple championships because they were really, really good, but they never did. It was hard winning chips in the 90s with Michael and Magic getting Bird in the way, so, and Isaiah in the way. So, it was just hard. So most teams didn't win chips, but yeah, I mean, he had some really, really good teams in those years that weren't able to break through. So if you want to call that a blemish, I guess you could. I would just say most coaches would have that blemish as well.
David Aldridge with us as we remember Lenny Wilkens. Lenny was in a pressure cooker with the Olympic team. Let's be clear about that. You come out of the dream team. You've got the Olympics in your house, literally in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Talk about how important that moment was, because we had established, the United States that is, we were the kings of basketball. We were riding real high. And if there had been a banana peel in that Olympics, boy, we'd have probably had an international incident, right?
Yeah, well, obviously there's no, that's the one that, when you have that kind of expectation, it's nothing good can happen. Either if you win, everybody expects you to win, and if you lose, it's catastrophic. But certainly after the dream team in Barcelona in 92, when you come home in 96 to Atlanta, everybody's expecting the same amount of level of dominance. And they weren't as dominant as the dream team was, but they were they were never seriously challenged in those Olympic Games. Those very good teams with Reggie Miller and Barkley was a holdover from '92. So the team was never seriously threatened, and Lenny did a perfectly good job steering that team to a gold medal. They were the best team by far, and went out and did it. They maybe weren't as flashy, but that kind of is like Lenny. Lenny wasn't flashy either as a player. So they kind of actually, I think, on his sensibilities maybe a little bit in terms of how they just kind of very methodically mowed everybody down and won the gold. And, they had a much bigger scare 4 years later in Australia. So Lenny piloted when it was his turn to bat, he got the job done and brought home the gold.
Now, I want to talk about today's contemporary game and the major headline involving this gambling scandal. I've always thought that it was dangerous bedfellows when you got TV networks and the association and other teams sort of in bed media-wise with these, let's call it what it is, bookmaking parlors. They just done digitally now, right? What must the NBA do now to get its arms around this so this doesn't morph into something that would be sort of similar to the the scandals that we saw in the 70s, early 80s with drugs and stuff like that?
Well, those are obviously different types of problems, when you talk about substance abuse and things like that. But in terms of the gambling, I think you just have to be, you have to be methodical and intentional about kind of removing the connections or the potential connections, I would say, between gamblers and teams, right? Like it's difficult in sports like football, like basketball and hockey and baseball, because there's just so many games. Football has 17 games. Now you could still try to manipulate outcomes with it, but it's harder because there's just fewer games that you have to do it in. With basketball, you just have so many games that it's easier, I think, to kind of ingratiate yourself with a player or have a player ingratiate himself with you, and make that connection that leads to, hey, I could do this for you. And so to me, the easiest thing is get rid of the prop betting. That's the thing that I think brings in all the players that don't play a lot, whose numbers, if you're not paying attention, wouldn't be noticed if they scored 4 points and they were expected to score 7. Like, those are the things. Nobody's really paying attention to that except the gamblers, right? Like, so if you eliminate that, if the NBA goes to its gambling partners, for lack of a better term, and says, look, you got to get that off the books for our games. Like, you got to eliminate that. That's what I think will happen. I don't think there's too much money in gambling now. Like, there's just too much revenue. The NBA and no sports league is going to walk away from that revenue. They're just not. I wish it weren't that way, but it's that way, but what you can do is get rid of the lowest hanging fruit, and the prop bets are the lowest hanging fruit, because you don't have to even talk to the star player, to do a prop bet. So you can talk to players that get very little attention, very little scrutiny, and, you can still make money off of games, right? So to me, that's the easiest thing to do for any sports league to do, is to pull back. And I think you saw Major League Baseball start to pull back on that the other day. On some of the
right after 2 pitchers got caught.
Well, yeah, right, no doubt, right. But yeah, I think that's the easiest way to do it. But it's going to be a problem. Like, late David Stern, always, this was like his nightmare, was gambling, and didn't want the NBA affiliated with it at all, and was adamant about it. And then when Adam Silver came in, they kind of changed their mind and said that we should do this. And so, you gotta own it. You're the one that brought them into the temple. So, you gotta kind of own the results of that, the good and the bad. The coffers are fuller, but you also have these things that pop up. And I don't think they're going to stop popping up, because I don't think people are going to get less ambitious as we go forward, and less greedy and less willing to make deals that make them money. People are people, and some people are susceptible to that stuff.
I used to ask you when you worked in Philly, how about them Eagles? Yep. But now that you're back home, how about them Eagles? I'm talking about the American Eagles. I'm talking about your alma mater.
I know. Well,
you got the chip now.
We're coming off the chip. We had a great day last year.
You're the hunted now. What's it like being hunted as opposed to being a hunter?
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. That means you did something. So no, we're a young team this year, man. We lost 6 seniors. We got 6 freshmen now. And that's going to be an adjustment. It's going to take a minute. So this year is more for let's see how talented these guys are. Let's see what they need to work on going forward. See how many of them we can keep, because this is the era of the transfer portal and NIL and all that stuff. So I'm going to probably yell a little less this year.
Right. Hey, you earned it.
Because I know that this group is younger, and that they have to be kind of nurtured.
Groomed. They got to coach them up. But I will
coach them up. That's right.
I'm old enough to remember when all the local teams would play each other. GW, AU, Maryland, Georgetown. We've seen Maryland, Georgetown. You got some juice. I like to see some DMV versus DMV action, because we don't really have to go outside the area for great basketball, bro.
No doubt. Well, Georgetown played Maryland, I think, right, last week, and we're playing GW on Wednesday. We play GW all the time. We used to play Howard all the time. We scrimmage with Howard now, preseason. I would love to see a 4 or 16 local round robin somewhere. I think I would say I would love to have it over at Care First Arena now?
Yeah.
Because I think Cap One's probably a little too big for it, right? But I would love. Well, if Maryland and Georgetown got involved, it wouldn't be. But even if they don't, I think Care First would be great if you had AU and Howard and GW and Mason, and if you want to bring Towson or a couple of schools from Baltimore in, that'd be no problem with me. Like, want to bring Morgan in, that's fine.
He is the incomparable David Aldridge, ladies and gentlemen. Check out his work at theathletic.com. And I'm back, DA, so I'll have you back.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Always love talking to you, man.
Stay with us. We got more of what you came here for. It's OG Sports Talk on Sports Rap Radio.
Yeah. It is Mary Jo and Ronnie Duncan, and I don't mind telling you. They're going to act like if they, I never cheer for the white guy. Yes, you do. That's why y'all crazy about Jake Paul.
The Sports Rap Network. All we got.
OG Sports Radio moving. This is your boy, Professor G. Thanks for hanging out with me. Appreciate you for coming along for the ride. As always, find me all over the place in cyberspace at The Sports Groove, 24/7, 365 on a computer, smartphone, tablet, however you get your social media groove on. Find me, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Join the HBCU Sports Nation page. We got big plans coming up for Thanksgiving weekend right here on the network. I'm going to New Orleans to cover the Bayou Classic and more. So follow me on the HBCU Sports Nation. Keep it locked right here on weeknights and stay up with your folk. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I did want to talk about somebody that's very, very intriguing around the country as far as basketball is concerned, but is about ready to assume native son status in Detroit. Cade Cunningham is straight ball. I mean, and it's one thing to be a scorer who's efficient and leads the team, but I mean, this guy is kind of ridiculous. Now, you don't want to really judge what you saw when you see a guy go off against the Wizards or the jump off of the NBA, quite frankly. You pass through, you get some, you go, right? Anyway, I mean, it's crazy because he put the ball up 45 times from the field, okay? He only made 14 shots, right? But he scored 46 points. It had to be the most inefficient 40-point performance since the NBA merger. Let me just be clear about that. But quite frankly, as inefficient as he was to score 40 points, which is crazy to me. Now, again, he puts up a lot of 3 balls. I mean, think about it. If you make 8 or 9 3 balls, that's 24 points. You can get up to 40 with several garbage points. But I got to be honest with you. When you look at Cade Cunningham's productivity and you compare him with like the elite players in the game, certainly the most efficient guys, he don't have to take a back seat to anybody. He's giving you 27.5 points per game. All right. That's only like second in the league to the reigning MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Let's be clear about that. I'm a Knicks fan. Jalen Brunson is my guy. Jalen Brunson, as great a field general floor leader that he is, he ain't no K.E. Cunningham. He ain't no SGA. I mean, think about it. Cunningham's now actually outscoring Victor Wembanyama, although Wemby has come back to the pack. I like the fact, and Wemby is a bigger player too, so he's going to be more efficient in terms of getting to the hoop. But you talking about, and I think really, when you get right down to it, that's probably where Cunningham has to make his biggest leap, getting to the hoop. I think he's falling in love with the three-pointer sometimes, but he's so efficient. How do you hate on that? Now, again, high-volume scorer, but he's got to get a little bit more consistent, if you ask me. But I love his game. And see, you can look at all the factors, but the bottom line is he's going to have to put up more shots because there's not a whole lot around him still. They're moving in that direction. Don't get it twisted. But as of right now, to whom much is given, much is required. But I will tell you this, I expect the efficiency to grow, right? I think he's going to, if he stays healthy for a full season and body doesn't break down from carrying the Pistons on his back, okay? And I think that's, because let's be clear about something. The NBA is officially now a marathon. It is not a sprint. And even the young players, and again, Cunningham in the second year, they wear down. I mean, you put that first 82-game grind on your body, you get a chance to relax. Now you come back, you think you're ready for the grind, but you will hit a wall. And we know they're playing games right now, but we know the season doesn't really start until Christmas. But I like Cade Cunningham a lot. And the fact that you can be inefficient and still get 40 points is crazy to me. And I don't think he's ball hogging. I know a lot of people want to complain that too many shots, but you know something? Somebody got to be the alpha dog if the Pistons are going to come back. And see, again, sorry, young G's, I remember hating the Pistons. Let's be clear about that. I didn't like the way Chuck Daly played, but they won. And quite frankly, they had a very efficient backcourt, but the athletes the Pistons have make them an intriguing watch for me this season in the East. Now, I'm not going to put any burden or any expectation on him other than the fact I think that you could make a compelling argument that by the end of the season, Cade Cunningham could be the most improved player in the league if his efficiency numbers get better. But, I mean, look, when you got to beat a dude, sometimes you got to, go rogue. I mean, it happens like that. Sometimes leaders got to step out and do their thing. Get up more shots. Make more shots, okay? Who else do you want in Detroit to get up more shots than Cade Cunningham right now? Now again, that's to win games. When you start thinking about winning championships, you're looking for other parts. They are a work in progress. But I tell you what, Ernie Bickerstaff's kid knows what he's doing. He's smart. Every once in a while in the intensity of the moment, I think he can lose his composure. But doesn't everybody every once in a while? I like what they're building in Detroit, from front office to sideline. And you got your superstar there. Look, objectively speaking, as one who's seen bad basketball for damn near 50 years through different ownership groups, the Pistons are knocking on the door. So, hey, look, there are going to be potholes. Remember potholes in my lawn? Those are y'all OGs. They're going to be, there are potholes along the way to greatness, okay? And you should remember that if you remember how tough it was initially for Detroit to crack the Boston Celtics code during the 80s and 90s. Took a minute. Now, I don't see Rick Mahorn walking through that door. There's no Dennis Rodman on that roster. Hell, there ain't even a Ben Wallace yet. Think about that. You plug players of that era in a team like this, and all of a sudden, you got a playoff run. Again, so I know a lot of people are frustrated. And see, this is what old school has to do, all right? You can't compare the new Gs to the OGs because the new Gs do it a different way, okay? And sometimes when you have to carry the team, you have to be a hawk, okay? And I have no problems with guys doing that. until the team around them is better. So we'll see as the season evolves, but keep your eye on the Pistons. Nobody's talking about them, and I don't know if they can win the East, but if you look at their rankings and how they've progressed from last year, I mean, be real for a second. They were giving up 113 points. Their defensive rating was 113.1. Their offense was 115. Okay, well, that's where it is right now. So they're 11th in the NBA in defense. They're 16th in the NBA in offense. Tells me that they got to find other players around Cunningham to step their offensive game up. Now, they are playing defense. Let's be clear for a second. Last year, they were number 11 in defensive rating, So all of this points me in the direction of thinking, and maybe I'm not seeing them enough. I'm not going to say that I watch the Pistons every night, but they playing defense again. And when you start talking about a team that's ranking third in forced turnovers and steals, Asar Thompson teaming with Cunningham, they create transition opportunities. And as their half-court offensive execution gets better, man, look, I'm just saying, you look at the way that they have a combination of forced turnovers. They do clean the glass, and they like to run. And that's the big thing that they can do. Now, when you're a fast break team, you can't fast break all season. But these are young kids with young legs. And this is the game that they grew up playing through all the AAU stuff and things like that. I really like the way the team is being constructed. I mean, when you got Asar Thompson, you got Cade Cunningham, you got pieces to build around. Now, I will say this, and I do like the addition of Jalen Duren, too. Makes him a much better defensive player. So what I'm looking for right now is the vet. Is there a veteran out there that could fit in there? And it doesn't necessarily need to be like a superstar vet. The Jimmy Butler type. What this team needs, in my opinion, right now is a shot of maturity. Somebody who can come in and just kind of, settle the locker room, be able to make a big bucket, get a big basket. You can count on him, which is what Cade Cunningham does. But who's the mentor? And I think that's what you got. There's no guy like Joe Dumars around anymore. And let's be clear about that. Say what you want about the Pistons and the bad boys and all that. Chuck Daly was a hell of a coach. He understood leadership, and the discipline of those championship runs was on that bench. And to me, J.B. Bickerstaff can find that on his bench. I got to believe that the sky's the limit for the Pistons. I'm not trying to capitulate it to, the home folks, because if they stank, if they smell like Lindbergh cheese, I would be right there. If they were playing like smelly sweat socks, I'd go there. But they're not. And temper your frustration with an outlook that's no longer bleak. I know, it's tough. It's tough. Coming out of baseball season, tough. We got the Lions. I mean, I see Philly and Detroit meeting in the NFC Championship game. There, I said it. It's out there on the record on blast. So if I go ahead and, find one of those betting parlors, I'd make sure I stayed away from Chauncey Billups. Can't be going down that road anymore. You might end up with some significant other kind of action. But I digress. I can't wait to see. Well, I missed the Pistons when they were here, so I guess I'm going to have to travel up the road to Philly to see them sometime this season. But keep your chin up, Detroit. These are good times. And you watch this team explode in a good way. If they stay healthy, second half of the season, I don't think too many teams are going to want to see them on any given night. It is Professor G. Mark Gray. It's OG Sports Radio on Sports Rap Network.
Well, let's be real. If not for the fact that Mel Tucker went crazy, man, and got them things thrown into space, right? Mel Tucker would have been a guy. That was a great job.
Check out the Bullseye Sports Squad presented by Dabo, Wardell, Walker, Jones, and Barthawell. On point and on the grind with Lions, Tigers, Pistons, and all things sports. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 7 p.m. on the Sports Rap Network. WGPR 107.5 HD2 Detroit. We all we got.
I am Mark Gray, the Sports OG. That's right. Been there, done that, seen a lot. That's why I bring you to my spot. That's right. This is the place where we drop that knowledge on you like it's hot 24/7, 365. Computer, smartphone, however you get your social media groove on, we are there. And we are pondering still the sickening notion that a sitting president could come to an NFL game while people are starving. I just want to frame that in narrative because people are starving and they're going to die. And this guy came from a party in Mar-a-Lago, right, over the weekend, got taxpayer money to fund it on the way down there, payer-funded money so he could come to Washington and really try to take over Sunday Night Football, which was a dreadful game if you're a fan of the Washington Commanders. 44-22 was the loss to Detroit. Detroit looked good. I will say this, they were playing a team that's awful and undisciplined, but when you're one of the Billy Badasses in the league, you're supposed to kick some ass when you get a chance to. And Detroit came to Washington salty from last year. And if you recall, it was the second round in NFC divisional playoff game where for as much as Jaden Daniels had become iconic with that pass against the Bears last year during the regular season, what we saw in this particular case was a Detroit Lions team that was banged up and really felt that they had something to prove. I think Dan Campbell is totally being underrated for the coaching job that he's doing with the Lions right now. They even look offensively good doing it. The way that the pass routes are being run, that Chris, Amon Ross St. Brown is just, I mean, I looked at him last night. I looked at Jonathan Taylor with the Colts. I'm like, man, there are so many great running backs in the game right now. And I'm just wondering, is that going to signal a shift in the philosophy of the league? But of course, the NFL makes its money on passing games and stadium names, which brings us to a very interesting dilemma that I think the tax-paying people of my audience, which is you, how do you feel about a sitting president more preoccupied with having his name on a stadium in the District of Columbia or worrying about what's in the best interest for you and your local municipality? I just think about it, man, the entire body of work, because, well, at least in Washington, the Commanders Group has decided they're going to fund at least $2 billion of the stadium/entertainment project that's going to be on the old RFK site, for those of you who are not from this area. But on Sunday morning, those of us were shocked to read that the president actually is going to try to bully the NFL and the Commanders into putting his name on their stadium. All these people who are making these calls are billionaires. Let's just understand what we're doing here at this moment. We're talking about a sitting president who probably through his ways right now is as rich as the guys that he's going to the table with. And there is animus between Trump and the NFL, and this is the time where he gets the chance to take his shot. And it was really, really, really ironic that he takes the shot on the same day that Paul Tagliabue, who is a devout Pete Rozelle guy, passes away. You couldn't have this theater play out any more than the way that it played out Sunday afternoon and early evening in the nation's capital, which leads me to believe that certainly Fox, the network, probably dictated by the news division, because somewhere along the line, Fox Sports and Disney are married. Now, I think it's more like one of those side piece marriages where, you know, the breadwinner is Disney and Fox is coming along for the ride. Sorry, Fox, that's where you at. So it would only stand to reason that they would capitulate the way that they did in terms of allowing more than 10 minutes of basically free advertising in a week after the Democrats had regained a lot more power in the states that the president is oppressing. Yeah, let that marinate with you for a second. Oh, now, it's been a buzzword in the black community for, 400 years. I think those of you all who need SNAP benefits and are worrying about your insurance premiums now can gravitate and understand what we've been talking about. You're trying to be radical leftist, Marxist, or whatever. Hey, get out of the way. Even the playing field, and let us all work. I don't see why that's so hard. But nah, these dudes are showing up at NFL games. In the words of the late great Gil Scott Heron, brothers and sisters, I don't know what this world is coming to. Anyway, as always, I'm anxious to hear from you. Are you cool with the president, spending millions of dollars on personal whims, not feeding people who need benefits? Oh, yeah. And then there's the air traffic controller thing. Okay. Yeah. And didn't I hear somebody from the FAA or one of the Trump appointees say that pilots shouldn't be worried so much about air traffic controllers and need to go with their gut? That is the quote. That's where we are. So your president is safely back, having spent money on taxpayer dimes, getting to NFL game, which became a fiasco because of him. Here we go. I mean, throwing up the fist. Come on, man. You got better things to do with your time, bro. He really does. And, hey, look, I'm glad I voted the right way in the first election. I really am. Anyway, feel free to hit me, diss me, or drop me. I don't care. But it's just ridiculous to have had to sit through that. It was just creepy. Anyway, that's just one of the things. A little bit later on in the program, we're going to be talking to a lady, Karen Reese. I had a conversation with her about and by now, it's probably the worst kept secret in America that Marshawn Nealon's cause of death was ruled a suicide after the police chase. You'll remember that the 24-year-old Cowboys DB now finds himself passed away, and it looks like it was depression. That was a tough one for me to swallow because I thought there was some significant amount of fair play, but nothing worse, I guess, than doing it to yourself. So it's a very, very sad thing. This is one of those times you can't blame the NFL. I don't know what more they can do from a mental health capacity, because when you sign up to play that game, you sign up for a 50-50 chance that you can walk on the field in the early afternoon and go off late afternoon in the stretch. And that's just how it seems to be. Well, as a matter of fact, that's just how it is. That's how it's been for quite some time. Anyway, everybody was kind of aghast, taken aback by the fact that the Fox NFL broadcast, and I'm not sure it was the 1 o'clock game in the 4 o'clock block, but it was a significant audience for Washington and Detroit. There were a lot of people that thought with Jaden Daniels in that game, it would make for more of a competitive game. But Washington's defense is terrible. And here come the Lions. I don't know. Well, we knew coming into the season that they were a complete team. We just didn't know if they had what it takes. And certainly if Aiden Hutchinson was going to be able to dominate the way that he needed to in order to get them over the hump. I'm going to tell everybody right now, to me, as I see the NFC playing out right now, with all due respect to the teams out west, they're going to eat their young, okay? They're going to beat up on each other and be so weak by the time they get to the playoffs, they could be on fumes, whoever doesn't get the bye. So between San Francisco and the Rams, it would appear that's where the West is going to be won. I'm leaning to the Rams right now because Matthew Stafford is playing out of his mind. And Stafford is one of those quarterbacks that can put a team on his back and can win you a Super Bowl. They've got nice parts around him. The defense is getting together. And I mean, when you lost so many players, it takes a while for them to gel. Detroit is everything. They know how to get to the conference championship game. I look at the way the roster's composed right now. What's not to love about Detroit? And Detroit fan, you should feel good about your team. I know it's been years of hell, decades of frustration. You've been a butt of jokes, but this ain't that time. The Detroit Lions I saw against, admittedly, a depleted and pretty bad Washington football team on Sunday. But I will say this to you, and I mean this wholeheartedly with 100% fact. When you got a bad team in front of you, squish it. I remember the late, great Eddie, former coach at Grambling, he used to tell him, he'd put his scrub teams in and they'd be rolling teams. He was like, look, I don't mean to have to, but sometimes you just end up killing a cockroach with a sledgehammer. It happens. I guess you can make the case that was the last election. So you can make a compelling argument that it might have been seriously manipulated. Ooh, why'd you want to go there? Not hating, just saying. And remember, for many, many years, you used to hear in Washington, this thing called plausible deniability. Plausible, and I think that's what we're dealing with right now with the nonsensical rantings of a lunatic who's commander-in-chief. Anyway, I am Mark Gray. I spell it Mark with a K, Gray with an A. I am the Sports OG. This is OG Sports Radio. On Sports Rap, class is still open, but I'm giving you a break. You come back before the bell rings, you hear?